Hi, everyone. How's everyone doing? I hope you're all doing good. This is currently 9 a.m. in the morning in Taiwan, so thank you all for joining. I am Munas. I'm one of the co-organizers of Spawn Act, which is a collective that is hosting the session today. I'm also going to be the panel host for today's panel. So welcome to Global and Local Exchange. Let me quickly share my screen here. Okay. This is going to be our first live stream event. It is actually part of a larger event series for Processing Community Day Taiwan, which is currently titled New Neighbor this year. So New Neighbor, we're New Neighbors Creator Community Day 2026 aims to introduce participants to neighbors who share the same community space with them through a series of collaboration, co-creation, and discussion. The participants can develop a common language and explore possibilities for future synergy. It is organized by the local Taiwanese art and design collective Spawn Act for Spontaneous Act, where we will host a series of conversational events running through the entire month of July. We actually just wrapped up another session yesterday at a local bookstore in Taipei, and we will have another session tonight focused on open source and maker culture. So come hang out with us. If you want to find out more about our other events, please stay tuned to our Instagram page at spawn.act, or you can visit the beautiful website that my talented co-organizer put together at pcd.spawnact.org. This year also marks the 25th anniversary of processing, which is this software that and coding language that a lot of art and designers use to make beautiful software that challenge the current mainstream dominant way of making software. So as part of the collaboration, there are many PCDs, processing community events around the world celebrating this milestone. Today's session is titled Global Local Exchange because it brings together creative technologists, designers, artists, and educators from Taiwan and across East and Southeast Asia for a conversation about cultural exchange in contemporary creative technology and digital art spaces. So kind of frame around this concept of new neighbors, this event invites 5 very talented speakers to share their creative practices, working methods, and the community they engage with. By placing diverse perspective in this dialogue, we hope to create a space that deepens mutual understanding and connection. This whole session will be conducted in English with live captions and auto translation for bilingual support. So hopefully the audience watching in other languages get to enjoy the session as well. Each speaker after this is going to give a 10-minute-ish lightning talk to talk about themselves and introduce their practice. And then after that, we'll follow by a moderated discussion with time for you, the audience, to ask questions and open exchange with our speakers. Okay, so is everyone ready? 10-minute-ish lightning talk to talk about themselves and introduce their practice.
And it's somehow,
And then after that, we'll follow
I don't know why, but we have 2 sounds,
for
so
you, the audience, to ask a question and
so let's check my, yeah.
Okay. So, okay, everyone ready?
Yeah. So I need to stop now, and I will start.
Okay. It's okay. Technical hiccups.
Louis 你可以再说说吗？
Oh, where do you want me to start?
Yeah,
Which
yeah,
part?
no, that's great.
Oh, okay, great. I think it could also be because I forgot I was watching the YouTube live stream, so I might be sharing sound from there. Oh, okay, great. I think it could also be because I forgot I was watching the YouTube live stream, so I might be sharing sound from there.
所以是你那边有开第二个 YouTube，
Yeah, 我有开一个 YouTube. It could be that.
所以应该是你那边的声音。
Yes. Sorry about that. Yeah, 我有开一个 YouTube. It could be that.
Okay.
Yes. Sorry about that. Okay. I think you need to mute yourself too. 你应该要关掉你的 mic， 因为你那边会听到 YouTube 的声音。Okay, great. Okay, maybe I'll start. Okay, we had a little bit of technical hiccup, but that's okay. That's what happens when we use technology. Now I'm actually going to introduce our first speaker. So let's, without further ado, get a round of applause for Nicci. Nicci Yin is an interaction designer and artist who runs Shift Command, a research and design practice whose projects ask what else computing could feel like. She creates conceptual art about software and produces prototypes, videos, writings, and workshops that defamiliarize everyday computational behavior. Nicci, welcome to the main stage.
Oh, can you see my screen? Great. Cool. So I'm Nicci Yin. I'm a Taiwanese designer and artist, and I'm currently located in Seattle. Yeah, thank you, Munis, and everyone for inviting us. I'm super excited to be part of this panel. To kick off my talk, I'm going to start reading an excerpt from a recent piece of writing called Notes on Misusing Interfaces. I am most familiar with my cursor. It follows my every thought. Does it even move before I do? It pauses where I hesitate and extends my touch into the screen. It's tired from traversing path after path of hyperlinks and dragging things from point A to point B. It plays a game. It changes its form and becomes a spotlight across the web. It becomes a peephole, a viewport to look through and reframe text and images. I used to play a game where I tried to unfocus my eyes as much as possible until my vision blurred and the world lost focus. I noticed I couldn't replicate this online. If anything, content demands more focus, more attention, and images only respond to likes, shares, and saves. But an image doesn't have to behave. An image can also reward inattention. It can respond to your stare, becoming more and more out of focus the harder you look. I'm constantly selecting text, words to copy and paste from one place to another, words I want to share with others, words I seem to read better just because I am highlighting them. Select a word here and what you didn't select becomes visible. Highlight another word and mark what's read from unread, turning the page into a trace of only what's seen. Every page assumes I'm alone. Every device is personal. Even on social platforms, we're connected through solitary screens. I'm the sole controller, the user, making things happen, tapping on links, typing words, and clicking buttons. But is a button if it's never clicked? This one refuses until it feels somebody else's presence. The button waits with infinite patience and rounded corners until you're joined by friends and strangers. Oops. So the videos I was playing in the background just now as I was reading were a part of a series called Site Studies, where I was trying to experiment with different alternative interfaces. So, expressed through the medium of websites. And through this project, I was trying to question my relationship to these artifacts of technology and how we interact with them. In here, you can see, how cursors, text, images, etc., they become unusable, unstable, or they fail in the techno-solutionist sense. So in my work, I try to create different conditions for us to embody these technologies, or maybe for technological artifacts to embody us. And recently, I've been thinking about techno-optimism. It's a word I typically shy away from because it feels really entangled with techno-solutionism. And even, just looking at these definitions side by side, you can see that there's a lot of similarities, especially in the kinds of belief systems that they encourage. So techno-solutionism here, the belief that all problems can be solved with technological solutions, including cultural, economic, systemic issues. Techno-optimism is this faith in technology as a benefit, especially economic, and that it is key to human flourishing. And so these frameworks have defined the kinds of technologies, right, that have been developed and that we use. But, the words like move fast, optimize, scale, growth, innovation, and progress, I think all of these have this very, capitalist mindset to them. And recently, I think coming back and forth between Taiwan and the US, and also being able to compare and contrast the worlds that I'm in, including the art world and also the corporate tech world, I've become, more critical of this capitalist point of view, but also increasingly starting to question attitudes towards technology that are only critical or pessimistic, especially that I've encountered in art and academic contexts. And so last week when we were talking with the panelists and hearing everybody's reflections on how the Global South engages with technology, I was wondering if I could redefine what techno-optimism means to me, or what it would take for us to become more techno-optimistic. And not just in an uncritical sense, but also build practices that embody this. So for me, I was thinking and reflecting on moments where I felt optimistic about the technologies that we use and develop. One thing that I was trying with site studies, here, where the technological artifacts are repurposed and we develop a new relationship with them through failure and refusal, where interactions are embodied, where they might be misread or fail, or even be potentially humorous or tragic as well. And another example where I encountered something similar was this DIY AI workshop that I participated in, where we were training small CV models. This was conducted by Vera Vanderberg and Ploy Flynn of AIX Design. They're both based in Europe. And in this workshop, the participants, we all collected and created our own data sets of around 100 images or so, which we then uploaded to this customized annotation tool. And once we were in there, we started labeling based on our own experiences of how we interpreted the information and the kind of model we wanted to train. And for me, what was interesting about this was it wasn't just a process, of trying to consume a lot of data and trying to develop a model to solve a problem, but it became more of a reflective process. Vera asked us to think about, how did the labeling task change our idea of the labels? How did we experience this task? And so one of the things we did was we were asked to come up with 4 labels, but also to mark them on this axis and start to think about the words and meanings that might emerge from between the words that we were initially drawn to. And to me, this was really interesting because it was a reflection of how we make meaning in the world and how this translates to how computers understand our world as well, right? So here are 2 examples from the class. On the left is mine. I was training this model to recognize different hand gestures and performative gestures. And on the right, my friend Tara Kelton, she was trying to train models to recognize ghosts in images. So you can see here how the tiny, tiny small models interpreted these test images that we had. And something that was also fun was we were using our models on each other's images as well. And so even though they weren't specifically trained for it, it was interesting to see these misinterpretations that emerge. And those things, I think, to me, feel more exciting than using models to solve problems. Another condition that makes me feel, back to this idea of trying to create my own definition of what techno-optimism means is this feeling of experimentation, learning from peers, and also knowledge sharing. So in this screen, the example is another site study that I was working on, where I was imagining what it would feel like if a website had to be cared for in order to be used. So these are different tools where you might be able to grow different divs, even style them, kind of challenging the idea that, you know, a website already comes ready-made, and what would it feel like if we had to sort of develop it together. So I developed this into a workshop, which I actually just ran this past weekend, and it was called Tending the Web Page. And in here, my focus was really less on trying to help people learn coding from scratch or become, you know, experts, but really more about translating concepts into interactive behaviors. In this workshop, we collected, you know, examples of physical gardens, digital gardens, and went through this annotation exercise of labeling like all of the things that we feel inhabit these gardens, what it felt like to move through them, what the gardens might be like across time, and also looking at different actions like planting, weeding, composting, etc., and how these might become tools and actions that we can then develop in HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Another exercise after this was turning our ideas into storyboards, and it was a way to create a map for the code. And I think what was also inspiring about this was people were able to sort of share the way they thought with each other, give each other ideas on how to simplify and refine their concepts, and yeah, have this sort of roadmap to look at. One thing that was emergent through working on this together was people ended up sort of encountering very similar problems. And just by the act of working together and trying to understand this material, they were able to give each other solutions to solve problems, and do this little show and tell at the end of different things that they made, and essentially just have this environment where I think people were comfortable learning together, and also, yeah, helping each other. So this is what I've been thinking about and trying to embody in my work lately, creating conditions where we can all feel techno-optimistic. And for me, it's exploring other possibilities of technology, whether it's AI or the web, and especially together, peer-to-peer, and with neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nicci, for your presentation. Okay. Okay, I am going to welcome our next speaker, Patt. So, Patt, are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. Patt Vera is a Bangkok-based creative technologist and educator who uses technology as a sandbox for play, experimentation, and exploration. Her work focuses on demystifying technology by deconstructing complex systems into intuitive experiences that invite curiosity. By bridging the gap between logic and art, she makes technical concepts approachable and fun for people of all backgrounds. So, Patt, let's welcome you to the main stage and start your presentation.
All right. Thank you so much, Muniz. Hi, everyone. My name is Patt, and some of you might know me from my YouTube channel where I teach creative coding primarily with P5.js. So we're excited to be here, and thank you so much for joining. Okay. All right, give me 1 second. Let's figure out why. Okay, all right. So did I just say that I teach creative coding? And in the age of AI, that probably raises a few eyebrows. Here is me teaching on YouTube. Sorry, 1 second. Right, so here's me teaching on YouTube, typing every character at a time. And then here on the right is a sketch I generated using AI with just a few natural prompts. And as an educator, seeing a vibe-coded sketch produced with so little effort gave me a serious pause. It begs the question, if anyone can just vibe code this, why bother learning to code from scratch? And it is a completely fair question, and it forced me to look inward and really ask, would I keep making these tutorials if no one is watching? And the answer is 100% yes. Why? Because I genuinely love the friction. I love grappling with the math and the algorithms, wrestling with it until it finally clicks. Over the last few years, making these tutorials has been my ultimate brain workout and also my deep source of fulfillment. But here's the reality we cannot ignore. The tech world is telling us, including my audience, to completely outsource that workout to a black box. And while my personal love for the craft might keep me making these videos, if the way I teach no longer resonates with my audience that can now generate code instantly, then half of the fulfillment is gone. It forced me to stop and face two massive questions. First, is the tech world right? Should we just give up, take our hands off the keyboard, and completely outsource our creative work to AI? And second, if the answer is yes, then what is my role now as an educator in this space? And to answer these two questions, I knew I had to really work with AI. And that brought me to my very first interaction with the technology. I called this period my era of high frustration. During this time, the code I got back from AI never matched the vision in my head. And I blamed it on two things. I think that the models weren't quite there yet, but honestly, I hadn't figured out how to talk to them yet. But during this period, though, even though I wasn't able to generate any beautiful sketches with AI, I found it incredibly useful as a personal tutor and a working companion. I used it as a sounding board to break down complex concepts, validate my understanding, and outline my scripts. And so my early interaction with AI really accelerated both my learning and also my process. But it was actually October of last year when I had my first taste of the magic moment. It's that, wow, it can really do that kind of feeling I think many of us have experienced with our own AI journeys. At the time, I was using AI to create a website where I integrated a P5 sketch right into it. And I'm not exaggerating when I said that it blew my mind. Something I had been trying to piece together for the longest time was alive, functional, and running in under 15 minutes. 2 prompts, that was it. But once the adrenaline faded, I was left looking at a scaffolding of a website in a code base that I couldn't navigate. And that was not a great feeling. And so I went back to where I started, using AI as a tutor to learn the nuts and bolts of web development. I decided to take full control of the steering wheel, having AI explain how things worked and provided the code, but I typed everything out myself. I intentionally did it this way because I believe it is the only way to build muscle memory and retain knowledge. Which brings me to the friction I'm navigated right now. There's a fine line between typing every character yourself and completely letting the AI take the wheel. How do we balance the speed of automated generation with the necessity of foundational understanding? So I came up with an experiment to test my boundary with AI. And for this experiment, I wanted to lean as close to the AI side as I possibly could, just to see what would happen. I decided to build a playful interactive website where swarming 3D particles would flock onto a hand-drawn line and form a dynamic looping animation. So I started out by writing a rough plan outlining the website and the stack that I wanted to use. Then I prompted it to Claude Code, and quickly I got a scaffolding of a website with a hand-drawn feature running on a phone. This was 2 prompts maximum, so I was off to a great start. But then I tried to describe the complex organic particle motion using just natural language. I dumped reference images into the chat. I tried to write out descriptions, but my prompts were vague. And it led to this exhausting, endless back and forth. After a few hours of wrestling with this, the end result was just generic. It worked, but the energy required was way too high. But then it clicked. The problem wasn't who was controlling the wheel. The problem was that I was not giving good directions. I was using casual everyday language that was difficult for AI to understand, which resulted in a cycle of mind-reading games between me and them. I realized that to get what I actually wanted, I needed to change the way I talked to it. I have to use technical vocabulary and guide the logic rather than waiting for the black box to surprise me. And I could do this using just natural language with more specific technical terms, or I could go back to where I'm most comfortable with, the P5.js editor, and I chose the latter. I started experimenting in P5 to nail the motion and the transitions that I wanted. This time, even though I was working with P5, it became a collaborative effort. I coded bits myself, and when I used AI, I used precise technical vocabulary to tell it exactly what to do with my code. And once I got a sketch I actually loved, I asked it to pour that logic back into my initial scaffolding of a website. The process became incredibly fun, fast, and productive. And now the foundation is working. My next step is just to start vibing with it, leaving room for those happy accidents that make creative coding so fun in the first place. And I can share this site with you guys if you want to test it out later. So, what did I learn? This experiment made me realize that the equilibrium isn't about pushing AI aside and coding everything from scratch. It's about recognizing that you can only safely let AI take the wheel if you know exactly how to give it the right coordinates. It's a collaboration between AI. It's a collaboration where AI does the heavy lifting, but your technical knowledge dictates the map. You've been told that AI expands your leverage, but what they don't tell you is that your technical vocabulary dictates the length of your lever. Why? Because that's exactly how these models actually work. If you rely 100% on the machine's imagination, your output is mathematically confined to the averages of its data, its training data. The technical foundation allows you to break out of predictable patterns and create something truly original. Without it, you're trapped inside a black box you cannot fix. But on top of all of this, there's a deeper reason why building this technical foundation still matters. Just like how I realized that I love making tutorials because it's my favorite form of a brain workout. Wrestling with that underlying logic and architecting these systems ourselves remain the ultimate cognitive exercise. And in a world where execution is completely automated, that capacity for rigorous thinking becomes your only true competitive advantage. It's incredibly easy to let go of the steering wheel because automation is comfortable. But I challenge you, don't take the easiest path because in an automated world, the act of thinking itself is the only real power you have left. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pat.
Thank
That was
you.
so great. My students need to watch that. I think I would record it and then I'm gonna send that to my student. I was like, come watch this other video from other teachers who say the same thing as I do. The next sub that we'll have is Kesha. So Elizabeth Kesha Wijaja is an Indonesian-born creative technologist and photographer with focus in merging digital interaction, spatial computing, and aesthetics. With a background in new media art and web development, she explores hybrid practices from photography and creative coding to interactive storytelling, driven by a response to the ephemerality of online content, and also playing with human perception. Let's give it up for Kesha.
Hi, everyone. Can you all hear me? Okay. So I'm Keisha. I'm going to start my PPT with my introduction. So throughout my life, I've lived in 4 different cities: Indonesia, Hong Kong, Singapore, and now New York City. I was born and bred in Indonesia, and I'm also what people call Chindo, the Chinese Indonesian, which immediately introduced us to the first local global notion here, as I perceive myself as being local Indonesian, and yet there's still parts of me that are perceived as global from other people in the country. So this quickly trains me and people who are in a similar situation as me to adapt to our communities. And next stage of my life was in Hong Kong. So this is also a point where I first met new media and interdisciplinary practice. It's also the point where I first picked up my camera. So at that time, I was just photographing objects as it is, very simple, just take picture, done. Like no, not much post-production. It's as simple as rendering an IMG tag. Simple as this. Well, autocomplete helps me. So there you go. No post-production. And then the next stage of my life was employment days. I worked in Hong Kong and Singapore for a bit as a front-end developer, and that introduced me to a new notion called modularity in code. Basically, it's just breaking components down to smaller chunks, and everything can be tied together with central logic. So far, before we were talking about local, global from geographical context, but here we start to move towards structural way of thinking. And this can actually be adapted to my creative practices. So for example, just like before, I've talked about how I photograph objects as it is. And then we can establish connections between these photographs afterwards. But now I created a new set of rules, which is more like top-down approach. You create a system or a logic, a function, as you may call, and then you can explore how different objects populate and transform within this system. And what's really exciting is that you can have the same system, but depending on what you put into it as arguments, it could output different outcomes that you may not expect. So that's the fun of creative coding as well. Okay. Oh. So yeah, as I was talking about local, global before, but I would like to shift it to the notion of argument and function scope, because it's just more relevant to what I'm trying to convey here. So function, as most of us probably know, is a procedure or like a how-to recipe, how you would like your work or your program to run or to look like if it's in a creative practice, for example. And for function to run, you need a scope. Scope is like an environment, like a set of boundaries that you define so that the function knows like where should I be in, how should I run this. And then in my creative practices, in scope could be the environment that I happen to be in. For example, right now I'm in New York City. I don't really have access towards, let's say, towards wet market right now. Not like in Jakarta where I can just go for 20 minutes walk, then there's a wet market nearby and I can take a project, like a shoot project over there. So these are some examples of boundaries that could happen in your function, and it kind of shape your creative outcome. And you have the important bits here, which is the arguments that you will input in your functions. These are the subjects or the objects that you choose, you curate to put inside your functions. Like these are two of my friends in Hong Kong, and I pick like a grassy landscape that's quite straight, so it will be easy to line them side by side in order to make a really long photograph. And finally, you will have a return value, which is the artwork itself. So looking at this artwork, we can't really scroll over it, but that's why you have functions here. What's this? I can't see my, oh, okay, flex direction, should be row. And then, oh. So now you can scroll with just flex, overflow, X, basic CSS. That's function for you. And then the next case I would like to talk about is the long form photograph that I really love. So here, as I've mentioned before, we have the overflow X scroll as the basic programming concept that could construct this layout. But the artistic concept for the functions is actually, there's a main arching narrative that I put into my long photograph projects. Most of them are about two people meeting. So like here, there are two people meeting in London. They are meeting in the middle here. So the girl lost her octopus card and the guy found it in the London tube. Octopus card is from Hong Kong, by the way. So this is just a funny anecdote. And then we have Hong Kong. It's about two strangers that bumped into each other in the middle as well. This one's fashion shoot. So you can see it's different, like slightly different mood, but you can tell that there's an overarching narrative that's kind of similar about two people meeting in the middle. This one is shot in Jakarta, and it's about a guy meeting a girl that he matched on Bumble, and they went on a little date, got engaged, a marriage, a ceremony, and a divorce, and back to dating stage. So those are function, but the slight nuance between the story, the micro narrative, are the arguments that I can change and ultimately create a different result. The next case I would like to bring up is this project that happens to be the starting point of my creative coding experimentation as well with photography. So I have a personal goal as a photographer to create alternative documentation process where photography becomes durational program that can be adapted to different events. So the question here is, how can I photograph or document the same event in a different way? If there's already a lot of other photographers in the same event, how am I able to document it in different ways and make the audience also experience the photograph in a special, different ways? So my answer to that is to build a real-time system Again, the function here, it begins with capturing the image and then converts it to 3-dimensional photogrammetry-like object, and then you project it into the LCD projector that's in the party. So this project was made possible with Python scripting on Blender, and the main sauce in this project was the Midas model here, which could turn 2D image into 3D object. It's a monocular model, so you can take any 2D image, no need stereo, and they basically take the depth map of the image, and then from the depth map information, Blender can have the information where it can put all those pixels that have depth map into point clouds, like this image. So this project was very special to me because I feel like the project came out from the laptop, from the computer. The documentation was no longer becomes a record of the event digitally. It became live. It's also participatory because people have to sort of wait for 30 seconds until the photograph becomes ready to be a photogrammetry object. And I also like seeing how people react to the photograph, because most of them also never see themselves in photogrammetry format. And the next case, still in the spirit of 3D, but I bought a 360 camera. So I became obsessed with trying to find ways to work with this format, because I don't really see a lot of artists using the 360 camera as a photography medium. Most of them use it for video. I also have a question regarding photography itself. After picking up this 360 camera, is 360 considered an image? Because you capture everything. So is it an image? Why do I rarely see it circulating in the media, like in the internet? Is there not enough platform that accommodate this kind of format? Are we just not accustomed to this? So this is not like a marketable, feasible media that people would consume? How can we photograph and display a 360 image? And how can the affordance of 360 image help us create a new kind of narratives? So those are the questions, and I answer with this streets project. And basically the function, again, is to take photograph every few steps within a specific location, render each photograph as texture inside a sphere using 3JS, and then display navigation arrows that move between photographs. The navigation arrows itself is also dictated by some config. So sometimes the arrows don't just go forward or reverse, sometimes it goes up. So unlike Google Street View, this project is inspired by Google Street View, but I realized that there's no upward or downward arrows in Google Street View. So I thought it would be interesting to have that kind of vertical navigation. So let's say in Singapore, I have my friend here riding up a lift. So he keeps going up. Yeah, and then he's in top floor now. So that's Singapore. This is the scope that we define. And then we can have other scope too. Jakarta. And then we can have, oh, I don't have London here. I have, what do I have? Hong Kong. So each of these projects also have their own stories, similar to the long photographs, and those micro-narratives becomes the arguments that are interchangeable. Yeah. So far we've been talking about creative coding, photography, and the merging of both. Those are different mediums, but there's a common factors between all of these mediums that I've used. There's a sense of layout. And when we're talking about the local variable, there's different people or collaborators that I met in different places in different times. So I'm very grateful of my the privilege to be able to live in different cities, because that way I also get to create works that are not really like there's some consistency between them, but also I feel like I get to explore different kinds of works and media because a lot of people influence me, especially my friends and my teachers. And ultimately, these works are not really constrained to any tools. Like I can use HTML, CSS, JS for most of the parts because I'm used to it. But technically, I can make like a graphical GUI with Python as well, or with processing. Everything is adaptable. It's plug and play. And I also feel like when I step into this role of creating things, be it with creative coding or photography or whatever, I step into two roles all at once. Actually, me and collaborators, we occupy these two roles simultaneously. We're not only just creating, but we're also audience members because, like I said before, we can't really expect fully what our outcome will be because there's the arguments part that would change the way the function work. And that's like the surprise element that I like. And so now it's your turn. The table is yours now. I would like to stimulate by a question. So does an artist have an underlying algorithm in their work that meaningfully inform their theme, style, and working process? So I feel like across different works, most artists usually repeats like a distinct habit or a process, like a formula. They have their own favorite materials, mediums. It's like repeat logic with materials as arguments. So you can think of what kind of frameworks or habits that have gradually shaped who you are and how you work today. And it could just be like daily habits that you do every day. Maybe you wake up at 7 a.m., you sleep at 9 p.m. That's a function. And this presentation is available here if you'd like to access. And that's the end of this VS Code presentation. Hope you guys all enjoy.
Thank you so much, Kesha. I'm gonna scan that QR code later and then learn more about VS Code presentation. Awesome. Okay, so now we're gonna welcome our fourth speaker, Nyan. Nyan, are you ready? Yes.
Yes, I am ready.
Okay. So Nyan Fan is a media artist known for his work with software, installation, and film. Born into the internet era and raised in transition across multiple homes, his life is a scatter of moments, places, and people, both lived physically and digitally. Nyan also is the founder of Code Serving, which is a creative technology collective in Vietnam. He's a Fulbright student, also a recipient, then a mentor of the Processing Fellowship, and a finalist of the Lumen Prize. So let's welcome Nyan.
Okay, I will start right away. Thank you, Kesha, for a very amazing presentation. And also thank you, Munus, for opening my Mercury retrograde with a panel talk. Okay, you see a lot of Infinity video right here, but you're gonna see it a lot more later because I work mostly with film and how to present film as a software. I think before we start anything, let me circle back into my name because, you know, that's the beginning of everything. Have you ever heard a myth about like when you were born, your name is kind of carry a curse or a future or like a main storyline of your life? My name is Nhan. So Nhan in Vietnamese actually means humanity or belong to the human or as a human. So I don't know why, but along the way I grew up, I worked a lot with this topic and subject of human. Like the human aspect become like a big aspect of my career. Most of the time people know me through two entities like Munus just introduced me. You know me either through my actor's profile, which is Nhan Van, and also you can know me through my collective, which is Couchsurfing. So before I come too far, so let me start with my actor's profile first. I think a lot of my personal work can be dated back to the Yahoo blog when I first met people and also interact with internet. And after that, I keep thinking about like, so who am I as a human on this digital landscape of internet? I think that's why I start making art and using software as my main medium. Besides software, I also use text, film, and also installation. There are two works that I want to introduce everyone. I think these two works really shape what Nhan is as an artist. The first one is called Erase. So this work contemplates about a broken long distance relationship. So every day, so I made a device look like this. So every day, one AI agent woke up and they wrote a love letter, because they was trained on the conversation of two ex-lovers. And then 6 hours later, another agent woke up and just erased part of the poem by the rate that human forget information in their life. So by this one, I just feel like after a long distance relationship like falling off, every future memories is just like a reimagination of a past data. It's just how generative works. And also this kind of adversarial dynamic kind of like bring back the trauma and the natural state of a human that someday you will forget the people, you will forget the data, you will forget the memories that you once shared with people online until one day the data becomes nothing, just nothing. Yeah, so this is the performance I made. Eventually, you can see that the poem started to be written and to be erased ceaselessly again and again until it's become a white paper. So that's the very first project that I made with coding. And then after that, last year, I have a project called POV. So I made a fake Google Meet. I made an application where you can come and have a first date with me. Because by that time, I spent so much of time reading about AI dating. You know, recently there's a lot of the AI that they give you multiple profiles that you can interact with and become your, you know, digital boyfriend or girlfriend. Or even right now, when you ask people like, how can you guys meet as a couple? And most of the time you're gonna get the answers like, oh, we met on dating app. So dating at the moment for me feels like almost like a fiction, because you go online, you read people profile, you scrolling through them. So why don't I just make an application where people can get to know multiple versions of me? So when you join the Google Meet, there will be Nhan waiting for you in the Google Meet, and he gonna greet you and then talk to you, introducing himself. It's sort of like a choose your own adventure video game, because at the end of every short video, he's gonna give you some option for you to proceed your story with him. So eventually, there's so many Nhan gonna join the chat with you, And there's so many options that you can choose. For example, here, he asks you on the first day, do you believe in love at the first sight? Or you actually think romance is dead and you no longer believe in love? And according to that, he's gonna proceed the date with you and share some story with you. And like I said, eventually there's so many nyan gonna happen in the code, like a branching tree. Some of the nyan that you might fall in love, some of the nyan that you will absolutely hate, some of the nyan that you feel like, oh, this is nonsense. He's like a terrible artist. Who should make this one? Yeah. But you're gonna meet so many versions of me. Yeah, through this one, I just want to exercise my early practice as a filmmaker into the digital landscape of the internet and how the internet has consistently shaped our human as profiles and presented to the public and also to other people that we communicate in our life. To zoom back, so that's the two projects that really talk about who am I as a artist personality. To zoom out, I grew up as in a very privileged context. So for me, art is always have a distance to me. So when I grew up, I always thought art is something like romanticized and also like boxing the aesthetic into something very like distant from my normal life as an average Vietnamese person. So one of the first projects that really brought me to art is a documentary photography project. It's called The Pink Choice by Michaelan. This one is the first Vietnamese project that won the World Press Photos. And why is it so important? Because this is one of the first photo projects that photo the queer community in Vietnam during the 2000s. So this is the first time that I see a normal life of a normal Vietnamese person got celebrated as an artwork on a global scale. And this is the first time that I saw myself, my life to be presented in sort of an artwork. And that's what really got me into pursuing art. I think that says a lot about me because like when I practice, I don't really care a lot about, you know, like the things that I care the most about my art is like what human aspect is it? What kind of brings to the people? Does it represent me and the people that I live together with? And this kind of aspect really like following me throughout my career, even when I switched into coding and practice as a coding teacher. So in 2023, I have my fellowship with Processing Foundation. And the project that I brought to the fellowship is that I want to teach coding to my fellows in Vietnam, to teach people in Vietnam how to use code and how to use code to convey their personal expression, because I think it's important that people can leverage technology for their very personal use, especially in the context at the moment that there's a lot of like big company trying to commercialize technology software, and we feel like we are caught in a rotation trap to pursue like, you know, just like more effect and more like fancy stuff and sort of like relinquish our personal expression. So in 2023, I opened a club called Couchsurfing. We did everything from pitching to doing research and doing projects. There's several projects that I want to highlight from Couchsurfing. If my personal practice face a very intimate and personal aspect of my life as a human, my practice with Couchsurfing actually facing a lot to the community and to the public, but still on the same theme of humanity. One of the first foundational piece of Couchsurfing where I opened this is actually from Tae Yoon Choi. He is the founder of School for Poetic Computation. So this is actually the framework that I want to bring to Vietnam and eventually open Couchsurfing. He has a sharing that I really agree with. In one of his interview for Arena, he said that poetic computation is not aestheticization of software. And then he followed up it by saying like code is not neutral. It's actually used for massive exploitation in war machine. And poetics is never without politics. This one. It's got me thinking a lot because in Vietnam, I don't know about other countries, because in Vietnam at the moment, when we talk about politics, people sort of like keeping a distance from politics, and they thought like politics is something that far away from their personal life. But for me, like politics is something very like personal, and you can only encourage artists to join in a political discourse if you encourage the artists to express their personal idea and their personal voice. Not only until that the political aspect of it kind of come out. So that's why I keep saying about the personality, the aspect of human and the aspects of personal in my practice and with couchsurfing. So throughout the past, we have encouraged artists to raise their personal voice by supporting them and teaching them how to use technology. One of the words that I really love, this one is a performance. This is a poem generative performance. What you see right here is the shadow moving from the trees. And what's so special about these trees actually line up around metro in Ho Chi Minh City. And these trees that you see at the moment are no longer exist because they were cut down to make way for the urbanization of the city. So me and the artist and the team, we question like, so if you tree can speak, what can they speak? You know, can they make some protest? Can they make some poem? Can they make something meaningful? So by using P5.js, we kept tracing the shadow made from the tree and map it to a predefined poem structure to create a poem. And what's so special about it is actually, I'm sorry that you don't understand the poem in Vietnamese, but the corpus of work right here is we picked it from 200 articles and governmental papers. So a lot of works here actually only used for governmental purpose. And when you loop it into an predefined structure of poem, the words kept like repeated and evoke sorts of like formal, overly governmental and empty promises that make to our society by the government. And this performance was happened by simply holding the system and walk along the street of Saigon, especially the place where the trees like fall down for the urbanization, as a ceremony and also a way to protest the what happened in our city. Away from that, we also having research about Vietnamese language. I don't know why my personal practice is very film-based, but when I switch into my collective practice, it's very text-based. So one thing, if you don't know about Vietnamese language, is that Vietnamese language is actually kind of similar with Chinese, because every single syllable in Vietnamese carry meanings. And when you break down that syllable, it can be organized into a pre-consonant, vowel, and post-consonant. As you can see right here, this is a yellow part, which is the pre-consonant. The aqua part right here is the vowel, and this is the post-consonant. So what's wrong with it? So this is a new design for the Vietnamese keyboard, because at the moment when you use the QWERTY keyboard on your laptop, you have to type the Vietnamese language by using character like A, B, C. For example, my name, Nhan, you have to say like N, H, A, N, but Vietnamese language does not function like that. It's actually a relic of colonial, when the Western people come in with the alphabet and they kind of strip away from the syllable how Vietnamese sound. So how Vietnamese can be formed? We form a syllable in Vietnamese by doing this. For example, by my name, we're not going to say like N-H-A-N. We actually use like Nhờ, Nhờ Anh Nhân. Yeah, so we form a syllable by spelling the pre-consonant, the vowel, and the post-consonant to form a word. Yeah. So this is like a small application that we try to experiment with, but somehow this one expand into a 1 year long project of research. And by doing research, we're going through the current Vietnamese dictionary. And in the dictionary, we have multiple vocabulary. For example, like this, ác nhân is someone really, really bad, like thing like the villain in the movie, ác nhân. And you can see like ác nhân is formed by 2 syllables, ác and nhân. And then we cut it down into syllable. So we have ác is 1 syllable and nhân is 1 syllable. And then after that, from the nhân, we furthermore cut it into like consonant, vowel, and post-consonant. And during the research, what we do is that we use Python to go through dictionary to cut it down and put into like 3 chunks of that. And then after that, we mix everything up to say like, oh, can we create any, novel syllables in Vietnamese? Those syllables that can be formed by the Vietnamese rules, but have not made it into the dictionary yet. How many syllables do we have like that? So at the moment, we have 7,000 syllables in our dictionary. And can you guess how many syllables, like novel syllables, that we can make by randomly throw things together? We have 80,000 novel syllables that we can make using that kind of format. So which means that 80,000 syllables in Vietnamese still waiting to have meaning and can be pronounced by the Vietnamese. So it means like a tremendous potential and abundance of the language. And this is really what we look for our research. There's one teacher come to our talk show for this project, and she was like, what's different between Vietnamese language and other language is that Vietnamese language is still a living language, which means that we still have the reservation for potential that ready to use in the future. For example, if you met some Vietnamese people in America, they left the country before 1975, they used totally different vocabularies than the ones in Vietnam at the moment. So which means that during that period of time, Vietnamese language still like growing, still having new meaning, still having new vocabularies for the future. And this project is actually a proof for that kind of potential that we are talking about. Yes, and after 1 year long working with Vietnamese, just recently we're having a new project, our latest project, still dealing with text, but by this time we walk along the southern coast of Vietnam and collect all the folklore of the southern coast ethnic people of Vietnam, try to digitize it and put into a public data set for people to scrolling and learning. So we're trying to build an archive on this where people can read the folktales of Vietnamese in different ethnic language, and also like have a translation in Vietnamese. And also you can navigate by filter this one. So if you don't know, recently Vietnam has gone through a restructure in geography and the government. So there's a lot of provinces in Vietnam merged together. So which means there's a lot of culture and names and entities that got to be disappear because, they lose the name geographically and on the paper. So this is our attempt to save the culture of those long gone names. You know why? Because there's one thing very interesting about folktales is that there's a lot of paragraph in folktales that describe the nature and also describe the village, the people, how they work, how they live, how they survive in that kind of context. So we believe that by making an archive about folktales for ethnic people, we can help to maintain and to save the culture of them. And this is the beginning of our project. We currently working with the Goethe Institute from Germany to furthermore perform AI and other search engine so we can like search this archive semantically and also find new alternatives and also a direction that we can creatively work with the archive to contribute to the digital humanity of Vietnam. Yep, so that is a lot about me. I'm sorry for bombast everyone that much information early in the morning, but that is it about me. My name is Nhan, and I really think that technology should be personal, should be free, and should be accessible for everyone. And I think that's why I'm here. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Nhan. That was beautiful. Okay, last but not least, let's welcome our last speaker before we transition into a panel. So the last speaker is Spencer. Spencer Chen is an artist, engineer, and toy maker interested in the play, creation, and care that emerges from our relationship with and through technology. Working across internet spaces, interactive sculpture, and creative tools, they engage with everyday practices to explore our online identities and design public good technology. These work leverage whimsical intimacy to interrogate our systems, invite new imaginations, and provide the means to reinvent them. Spencer, welcome to the main stage.
Hello, can you hear me? Okay, cool. Thank you, Muniz, for that wonderful introduction. And I'm honored to wrap this up after all these amazing talks from these artists. My name is Spencer. I'm a Taiwanese American based in San Francisco. And I'm excited to tell you a little bit about my practice today and the questions I'm thinking about. This is my website. This is where a lot of this practice unfolds. And I like to say I'm an artist, I'm an engineer, and I'm a toy maker. And I try to sum up my practice by saying I make software we can touch. So what does that mean? The fundamental material that I work with is software. So that sort of can span open source tools, apps that play out as performances and choreography on your phones, and web experiences that sort of create like an infinitely new space using media from the internet. I make software we can touch. Touch is really important to me, the tangibility of touch, the accessibility of touch, because it implies that the software is something that we can change and something that we can feel, and it brings it down close to us. And I think that's sort of a core value that I sort of try to impart in all of my things, because then we feel like we can have control over it. One example of this extends into sculpture and objects. And so these are some works that where I've embedded web experiences inside certain objects. So these fortune cookies give you like a new fortune every time you bring your phone close to them. And this is a pillow for your phone. So putting it to sleep, putting it do not disturb, having these rituals with our devices that are a little bit different. And finally, we can touch. I think it's important to me that our experience is not individual and not fully solitary, that it implies that, we are collectively shaping the software, and, naturally with physical objects and physical spaces, you sort of naturally share that and can all touch it at the same time. But for the software, it can be very personal and individualized, and we're sort of used to these algorithm and personal algorithmic feeds. So a lot of what I create is focused on how do you create a shared space with the software that invites people in to actively shape it. And so this is a work that sort of combines a lot of those principles. This is Computing Shrines. It's a series of public sculptures that similarly to the other objects have web experiences embedded in them that can only be accessed at the sculpture. And they have different sort of intimate software experiences that let you share feeling or a moment with another stranger who has visited there when you bring your phone close to it. And beyond that, it sort of also is a protocol so that anyone can basically make their own or host one themselves in any in their community. And so we can have this network of public computing that is connecting visitors to the same place. For a lot of this talk, I want to talk about the internet because I didn't mention the internet in those words, but all of it sort of revolves around the internet. I'm creating websites, I'm creating software, even the phone experiences and the sculpture play out on the internet. And I think the internet is important to me because it's inevitable that we are going to be spending a significant amount of our time on it. And so I care about making it a place that feels nourishing and good to live in. There's a lot of controversy about the internet these days, and especially with a lot of AI generative tools, AI generated content. This theory called the dead internet theory is kind of coming back in force. It's been around since before LLMs, but it's people are talking, and it used to be this conspiracy theory that the internet was more used by bot activity than people. But now, there's recently, I think Cloudflare found, or like they studied that like over 50% of activity on the internet is now by bots. So it's sort of graduated from this conspiracy theory to the current state of things. And you can sort of see, the different images on Wikipedia for this, from the AI generated content that's sort of going out on traditional social platforms to, in the 2016 elections, even having bots, but nothing of this scale. And this can be pretty bleak. But I think, while we can't compete with the scale of activity from bots, there's really no meaning to the internet if there were no humans on the internet at all, there would be no meaning to it. And so this is a piece I wrote called Alive Internet Theory that sort of talks about all of the human spaces and these personal feelings and encounters that happen on the internet and still will happen despite all this activity, because in the end, we're the ones inhabiting it, and we're the ones using it to encounter other people, make spaces for each other. And I think it's really fitting that, I didn't come up with this term. It's just something I saw online through different internet comments. And there's not really any, I tried really hard to find like a person that came up with this, but it really is just like in the internet vernacular, and like sort of the origin is just on various comments across the internet, which I feel like is very meaningful for the theory itself. And here's one of the big comments around it from this person on Tumblr, talking about how the theory is about the internet being full of real people and how you can befriend some of them and maybe even kiss them and more. So I think, this raises a lot of questions around what makes us human, what is the value of lifeness, and ultimately, as these tools get better and more stuff is generated, it asks us what cannot be generated, and what is what can we offer when we inhabit the internet, and when we're like our actions on the internet and in digital spaces, like what makes that special. And I think if we, want to cultivate the space for people to inhabit the internet, I do think we need more tools, new tools to fight for it and to allow people to, cultivate these spaces. And so this is a big reason why I've been working on this tool, this open source tool called Play HTML. It's a tool for making social web spaces by enhancing elements with real-time persistent interactivity. So you can sort of see over here on the left, I click this fire hydrant and then it starts raining on the page for everyone. I can move the plan around and click these buttons, and everything I do is, stays there when someone else comes back. And so there's this feeling of persistence and liveness, and that your actions sort of matter. And here's one example of a work that I made using the library called Poems We Found on the Internet. And basically, it's this really large wall of words. You can see it's very full. Every color indicates a different person that came here and added a word. And anyone can add words, can move them, can delete them. And I think it points to the kinds of new and personal and expressive social interactions that we can have through software and through the internet that we don't really get right now through a lot of the social media platforms that people are stuck on. And so this is the kind of new kinds of spaces that I'm hoping to encourage with this tool. Another example is on my website, my personal website. When when I go on the website, it tells everyone that I'm home, and I can also chat live with other people, and you can do these emotes together. And I think this is also another aspect of making a space feel personal and having this active relationship with visitors on a site. And there's been a lot of cool things that other people have made with this, from cooking together to having a horse race, making a garden. And I think you can see that all of these have very different vibes as well. And I think that's the exciting part of opening up the the tools for people to create and invent and design new social interactions, because I think there's so much potential for this technology to give us new ways to be human and have new meaningful encounters with each other. And it's already exciting to see this potential. I think one problem that I am running into is we can create all these spaces, all these websites on the internet that have these new social interactions, but ultimately it's hard to prevent them from becoming isolated, because most people are on these other social media platforms. Most people are just browsing the web. They won't run into these places. And so I've been thinking about how do we integrate this more into people's everyday digital practices. And so this has sort of evolved into this project called We Were Online. And effectively, it's a browser extension that brings Play HTML into any part of the internet. It can integrate with the different websites that have Play HTML on them already, but also adds a social layer to any website regardless of that. And part of it, is bringing this presence, is bringing this liveness to any part of the web. And you can see here all these cursor movements moving are real people who have the extension installed and have chosen to contribute their data to this project to share it with this live view who are browsing the web. And there's this pretty magical feeling to it of at any moment there can be 20 people who are I don't know, they're just going on whatever websites they're doing. And so, one fun thing I've been playing with this material that is traditionally a surveillance material to create a collective piece of art. You can see different cursor movements. You can see typing. You can see the different navigation that people are going to. And it's really exciting to, have everyone's, I think I'm thinking about how to give more buy-in to and control to the people who are contributing their data to actively shape this and invite other artists to build on top of this. But the fundamental vision is to create add on this social layer and create a space for spontaneous encounters on top of the existing internet. And that's a very big vision, which is kind of hard to do just by working on new websites. So this is a partnership I did with Wikipedia to like experiment with adding this social layer using the extension on top of Wikipedia. So you can see that there's different layers to feeling how people are on the website. There's these colors that sort of act as like patina on links. As people click through, you leave the color of your cursor on it, sort of like a fingerprint. You can see other people who are there, and you can follow each other down different rabbit holes. And it's really cool to see this applied to this very highly visited space that's normally so solitary, but is like fundamentally so collective. Like all of these articles are made by this community, and it adds this new layer to be able to also visit it together. And that's sort of, the start of it. And I'm still sort of experimenting with different ways to bring this in a meaningful way to other parts of the web. I'm just showing some different experiments and events I've done here, where one of these is where I hosted an event with Christopher for Rhizome, where we basically had different like icebreakers that we did together, and like, basically like performances with our cursors. And, I'm thinking about like, how can we take practices from physical communities that are focused around like this sense of social responsibility. So, as there's more AI generated content on the web, maybe part of the experience is, marking off these AI generated content and like doing this public good act together of cleaning up the web. Maybe you can like leave these messages in like, a digital bottle and have it travel across different websites. Still playing around, but that's why I'm excited to open this up. And if you have ideas, I'd love to hear them and support you in bringing them to the extension too. And I think it all comes back to this idea of liveness and what can't be generated. Because, I think like in the example of the link patina in Wikipedia, or these cursor trails, or these fingerprints in another project, these don't have any real use to them, but they are meaningful because they sort of represent that someone has been here. They are like proof of history, they're proof of a person. And I think, I'm excited to keep exploring the space and figure out, what are the design patterns and interfaces and things that, become more meaningful as generation becomes more accessible. And ultimately, rather than this huge social media platform, I think I care about being able to foster millions of tiny little platforms and internets and websites, each being able to celebrate their own personalities and differences and niches. And I think that's what would make, the entire internet feel a lot more alive and inhabited. And that's it. I would love if you're excited about that, to check out, both the projects we were online and play HTML and try it out, and install it. And yeah, thanks for your time.
Thank you, Spencer. Are you the one in the mask? Just kidding. Is that your dad?
That's my brother. I'm the small one.
Oh, so sweet. Awesome. Beautiful. I want to give a massive thank you to all of our speakers for your incredible lightning talks. I'm so glad that this is being recorded, because I need to go back and watch some of them again, because they're so great. Yeah, one other thing is that even though I already knew everyone here before the panel, I feel like I've still learned a lot today. So thank you for that. We're going to shift gears now and kind of bring everyone together for the panel discussion. For the audience who are watching on YouTube, this is where, we kind of invite you to start thinking about your own questions, whether you want to, ask any specific questions regarding the presentation or you want to challenge a specific point. Feel free to drop them in the chat there, and we're going to be watching the stream. 如果你想要用中文问问题也可以, I can help you translate into English later. 我可以等一下帮你翻译成英文. Okay, so this is a time to kind of connect the dots between all these different perspectives. I think the first question I have after hearing so much about each of your approaches in coding, technology, or what you've been thinking about, I'm really curious to kind of kick things off with a bit of background. I think some people have talked a little bit about your experience venture into the world of technology, but how did you all kind of get into creative coding? Like, what does the word creative coding actually mean to you? And is there a specific community that usually work with such word or such concept? Maybe we'll go with Spencer first.
Yeah, I grew up on the internet, and I sort of, learned how to learn what I cared about and what I valued through video games on the internet growing up. And that's what got me interested in the computer first, like creating these like worlds for myself, and also like giving back to the community in that way. And then that's what, led me to studying, engineering, computer engineering, and making software. And so it wasn't until actually after my studies that I encountered these more creative works of coding, and that like inspired me like when I first encountered it. And I was like, wow, this is like really amazing. And I felt like added a new layer of to my practice, where like I was cared about making programming more accessible. And then it was like, okay, now I can like inspire people and like make people feel things with that as well. Yeah.
Beautiful. Maybe Nicci?
Sure. I think also similarly, it goes back to growing up. Maybe less video games, but on different platforms and kind of social spaces, like, back to what Spencer was saying earlier. I think growing up where I had Neopets, I had Zynga, I had MySpace, like all of these different places where I could customize and like express myself on the web, right? And I think that probably maybe goes back to like the nostalgia that maybe I am sort of capturing and evoking in my work. And I see it a little bit too across like everybody's as well. It's like the platforms we used to have, you had a little bit more freedom to express and to like connect with other people, right? Through like your similarities or like these kinds of things that you wanted to share and what your profile looked like. But I think now our platforms have less and less of that. And so, how can we create more of these types of spaces? And I think that's also like sort of what, how I got into it, right? Is this ability to like kind of do our own thing and share it with other people.
Awesome. I also think it's really special that we seem to have a lot of us seem to venture into the world of creative coding, not necessarily through coding. For instance, Nyan and Kesha kind of talk a little bit about how you got into the world of coding actually from photography. Can you both talk a little bit more about that? Maybe Nyan first.
I always expect Kesha to go first, but actually, like when I first started, I was a photographer and I worked as a commercial photographer. So every day I have to produce like massive amounts of products photos. And when I was working, I was thinking like, so after I publish these photos online, where did they go? Where will they go? They will stay on the internet forever, become like a massive graveyard of media. So by that time, I happened to enter to participate into a workshop There's a professor, he used the satellite images to renovate the canal of Saigon. And that is something very like new to me and very innovative, something that you can use, something that you can do with images. And also because I'm very conscious about the life of people around me. So that's something that very like triggered my interest. And from that, I chose to go to study data analysis and eventually work into like computer vision and start my coding career. How about you, Kesha? Like,
yeah, I share the same sentiment as Nyan about very frustrated with the number of images circulating online. And I just feel like, why do I need to take more picture and upload it? I kind of feel anxious about cluttering the internet. So I was very much driven by how can I contribute something that's like I put a little bit more thought than just clicking the photograph, which is fine most of the time, but this is just for my, I guess, for my creative disposition. And actually my entry point of creative coding is more from a like a formal entry, like from interest in blockchain at first. I guess a lot of my friends that I met here, they get into creative coding from like Dan Schiffman or School of Poetic Computation. So it already started from a creative checkpoint for them. But I was interested in the concept of blockchain at first because it was just really foreign concept, especially if you imagine that this is not programming. It's just about, imagine I have Hello Kitty, and then it's mine forever. If I give this to my other friend, well, there's still a traceable, like there's still a way to trace back that this is mine. So I was more interested in how the concept could be transplanted to real life. So looking past the code itself, and then I got bored of Solidity because it was at some point it's too difficult for me. So I moved on to React.js because it was part of the tutorial when we were learning Solidity in that online tutorial. And then I like it because it's a lot of visual feedback, which is, I think this is similar to how a lot of people enjoy creative coding because you get immediate visual feedback right away. And you can see that, oh, my typing works. Yeah, so that's how I felt.
That's so interesting. I think, yeah. Also, Pat, currently you are a teacher in creative coding. And I think some of the people who are watching may be one of your students. So I really wonder how the world of creative coding has changed for you since, you started learning and now you're teaching it yourself and then reach kind of an international audience.
It's so interesting to hear everyone's like origin stories that basically is more like things on the web. And now I am basically on the web always. And that's how people find me. But actually, like when I got started, it had nothing to do with the web at all because my background is in mechanical engineering. And it was like very technical, very physical, and very, I mean, it's creative. It can be creative for sure, but I have been interested in like art and design, and I just never knew how to blend the two together. And I think like the big umbrella of like creative technology, creative coding allowed me to bring those two disciplines together. And actually like my initial interest was in physical installations. But like what Kesha was just saying, that like the visual feedback with what you type is very like instant. And that's why now like building stuff is fun, but it takes a lot of energy and effort. And now when I can just like type stuff in like a code editor and then just see what happens, I think like that allows me to express myself more easily and just like learn new things a lot easier. And it's my now preferred way of interacting with the world of creative coding. Yeah.
Beautiful. And one note is that this is being live streamed and recorded. So regardless of whether we want it or not, this is going to be, we're all going to be on the web for a while. The next panel question I want to transition in is the fact that we've kind of intentionally brought together a panel composed entirely of Taiwanese and Southeast Asian speakers today. I find this specific grouping particularly valuable for, this time, because too often, especially with the AI kind of, hovering around us every day, the discussion around technology feels very central in certain part of the world. So having this exact room of perspective feels incredibly meaningful. With that in mind, I want to ask all of our speakers, kind of outside of a strict academic context, what is the idea that people would say, oh, we need to learn from the global South actually mean to you, right? How do we move past, kind of the theory of learning from the global South and maybe actively practice learning or unlearning that through our work? Maybe since we end with Patt, we'll go with Patt this time.
Sure. Okay, so as many of you know, I am based in Bangkok now, and I've been here for the past 6 years, but actually I spent over a decade in the US. So I feel like I have both perspectives, but now being really immersed in the local culture of the global South, I guess. And I think like in the past 6 years, just like to kind of answer your question and open like this conversation around like the gaining knowledge between like the global North versus the global South, I think it's how I see it is more, it allows myself to kind of think about like being more open-minded to the concept of like what is like quote unquote like better, or like what should be like the main source of truth. Why is one source of knowledge is seen or maybe not like superior than the other. And I think now that I've been in Thailand and like in Asia for almost a decade now, it really challenges my thinking to really like think about like, what's the benefits of these like local knowledge within like the local people, and how can we really challenge whether what is better or not. Yeah.
Yes. And I think Nicci has a similar experience, because Nicci, I know that you just recently spent, is it a whole summer or longer than that in Taiwan? And now you're back in America again. So can you talk a little bit about that, and how does that make you feel in terms of the topic too?
Yeah, I think I was, having been back and forth for the last like 15 years, I spent like 90% of my time in the States, right? And like go back to Taiwan a month or 2 months at a time. Being able to do that for 5 months this time really felt like embedding myself and trying to really understand, what do people actually talk about and understand there? What are the different communities that are like working on certain ideas, or what's kind of like missing in terms of like conversation that people want to see more of? And I think having that duration now in Taiwan, it made me like see more of that. And, back to like what I was talking about earlier in my talk to this question of, I know we keep bringing up AI, and I'm also kind of sick of talking about AI, but like the people's attitudes towards it too was just so different from like the dominant sort of like critical black and white discourse that I heard in the States. And so that kind of was like an interesting perspective for me too, is like, okay, what are actually the social conditions that actually make people feel less like scared about technology, right? And I think the US has like really terrible social conditions right now, that like any kind of technology a big corporation puts out, immediately we're skeptical of it, and for good reason. But I do think, like, back to your question about learning from the global South, I was developing this awareness, like, through listening to everyone talk in this panel. It really feels like these moments, you know, of like really trying to like learn from and build relationships with practitioners who are actually in these different spaces and not only entirely in, you know, New York, LA, San Francisco, you know, Europe. And I think this has really actually like, yeah, just helped me understand, okay, there are actually a lot of so many interesting things that are happening elsewhere. People bringing, you know, very local perspectives into their work, and just trying to like decenter, you know, the locus of like art and technology activity from just, you know, the spaces, right? Like the US. Yeah.
Yes. What about Nan, Onyan, and Kesha?
Why we always go together.
Oh, sorry, you're just on the screen together to me. On the blocks. Yeah.
Pardon. I think like when we talk about technology or any kind of like academia kind of context, people always have the hierarchical structural point of view that the West is always the one that more superior and are the one that export the knowledge. And the global South, and especially Southeast Asia, is like the receiver of that, like the import of that. But in reality, it's actually there's a lot of knowledge and know-how actually initiated and happening at the moment in the global South. And even there's a lot of like Western big company that come and try to coin the local know-how into their commercialized car product. So that's the situation that we need to acknowledge. From my side, I think like after I introduce everyone to work, everyone can see that my work has a lot local aspect into it. I really try to use the technology as a medium to work with local topics. And it's also something that I encourage my students to do during my class. I think by that way, we can encourage more artists, especially young artists from the global South, like emerging artists from Southeast Asia, to be more confident in working with technology. Can you imagine when you come into an art school and the first exercise is to draw a plaster, a sculpture of the Roman, you know, like a very Western feature? How do you feel about that? It's not familiar. So we must bring some topic that happening in the life of the students into the classroom, make them work with that material. I think by that way, you can encourage the student to express themselves first, and from that we can form a ecosystem of education and creative work that work for the global South. And by that way, we can, you know, like, I don't want to say rise up, but decentralize the technology landscape at the moment.
Yes. And just to break the group a little bit, Kesha, I'll let you do the last, and we'll go to Spencer first.
Your protest work, man. Yeah, I think my opinion matches a lot with like what Nicci and Nan were saying. Or like I think like there's like it's common for like the ideas to come from the West or like the North, and like and just be assumed that like that's like the best way of doing things. And you see that historically with a lot of like technological policies, even like, you know, like giving every child like a computer, like that was a big thing that the US tried to push. And like there's a lot of I think there's actually like, because, you know, people are so used to it maybe in the like in those areas, like it's easy to miss ways of using the technology that people in the global South or like other areas like are able to actually see, and because they like either need it in their daily lives or like you know, like it's like important to them because of some different cultural value. And so I think like that's you know, I guess the part of the exchange that I feel like is most valuable and interesting. Like you one, like distributing the power where like it's not unidirectional. And then also like, I think a lot of the ways that people are using the technology and stuff can be very valuable if like, companies and technologists are willing to listen to it from that.
Yes, and Kesha, you're currently calling from New York, so you're in the epic center of all of this. So really wonder how you feel about this as well.
Yeah, so I resonate a lot with what Jan say about the local know-how. So it's very similar to how in Indonesia there's a lot of things or like life like cheats that could be kind of viral if it's popularized in the Western media, but it's actually just like a daily strategies. Okay, even those words are daily strategies. That's like a very Western informed, I feel like labeling these as strategies. So I've been living more in an English speaking places rather than my own country so far. But yeah, some things that can look funny to outsider people who are not local from the country, they're actually just serving as practical efforts to do their daily stuff. And these are seen by the Western as something that's unique, something that could be artsy, like something other. So that was interesting. And I was gonna bring up something about like collectivity in the global South. I feel like it's not something that are labeled, unlike in New York, for example. There's a lot of collectives because you have a lot of different nations. That's why you have to be very upfront and very loud in sort of like stating that, hey, this is my collective, I'm from this place, so that people can recognize your group or collective. But in the global South, it's just something that you're born with. When there's a new neighbor coming in, it's just like a norm that you gotta greet them with like some food, some fruits. No one have to tell you. It's just very ingrained, and it seeps through the way people work as well. There's some pros and cons. For example, like it's just common that you have to go on lunch with other people. Most colleagues, they go on lunch together. So that might not be the best case for everyone, but it reflects through like all the lifestyle that people have in the South. And I think we can learn from that in terms of creative coding. A lot of the things that I've seen in the creative coding community, it's very much about sharing and also open source. That's literally being collective, the spirit. So yeah, it's very much alike, I think.
Yes, beautifully said. And I think that's a perfect segue of getting into some of the questions from the audience, the exciting part. Someone asked a question about where do you usually, or how do you usually find your communities, especially moving so much? And how do you keep up the momentum to continue making with other people? I think that kind of perfectly connects with what Kesha was saying about, learning from some of the ways that, the creative coding communities are teaching us as well about sharing. And this event actually is part of that sharing as well. But yeah, how do you find usually your communities, especially some of us like move around a lot? Or how do you keep up with your local communities, even though you're like maybe like geographically very far from them right now? Maybe Nyan, you want to go?
I actually still thinking, where did I meet my community? my community is just actually organic happening.
Mm.
I think I don't know. I think like something happened at the moment in Saigon is that we sort of a lack of space at the moment. So everything's sort of like happening online. We have such a big gap between like institutional and gallery and then DIY artists. So we have nothing in between. As I often say, like, if you don't have space, how can emerging artists emerge? Like, it's actually something happening at the moment in my city. So there's a lot of things happening online. And especially, I have to emphasize that there's a lot of connection happening between Southeast Asian countries, between Thailand, Vietnam, and Indonesia, for example. And just recently, I think the place that I found my community and my people the most is art book fair. Yeah, go to art book fair. There's a lot of cool people from like other countries, especially like art book fair in Southeast Asia. So you can talk to the people. And I think there's one note is that just because you want to work in creative coding or you work in creative coding, doesn't mean that you can only be friends with creative coder or tech people. Like go out, find some new people to be friends with. Ceramic teachers, engineers, I don't know, many multiple artists. So you can have like a bigger point of view and dimension and maybe some more diverse idea for your project.
Yes, that's a really good note. Not to plug myself in, but then I like also run an art book fair in New York. So if people want to, it's free. So if people want to come, reach out to me. But I think that's a really good way to put it, is that sometimes people, like, I don't think any of us here like to pigeonhole ourselves as being just creative coders. So I think being able to like reach out to the wider creator communities, I think that's a really good kind of takeaway. Maybe, okay, we have one more question from the audience. This is kind of a hard one. Someone asked, I'd love to hear people's thoughts on what will change with the rise of vibe coding. And I know that Pat has said so much about it, but are you willing to share a little bit more on that? What do you think will change with the rise of vibe coding, or how has it already changed the way that not only you, but people around you are making things?
Me?
Yeah.
Okay. I think, yeah, in writing the talk for today, which I have to thank you, Muniz, because I have been thinking about this for a long time, but I haven't really like put it into thoughts of like how I really think about this, especially as an educator in this space. And I mean, like I said a lot of it in my talk already, but I really now truly believe in what I say about like AI give you leverage, but you need the technical foundation to really practice or like lengthen that lever. Because the more and more I see stuff being made out there, you can tell that the aesthetics are very similar. And it is really just because that's how the models work. And I have nothing against vibe coding, but that term is broad. You can vibe, like, what is vibe coding? Like, it's just like using AI to code for you with, like, you just hand everything out there and just hope for the best, or you direct it in a way, but you don't have to like go and write the syntax, and you don't need to like go deep into like the coding itself, but you still produce what you're proud of. I think like there's a wide range of vibe coding, and I think like more and more now, because like AI has been around for a little bit, still like not that long, but like longer. I think there are a lot more examples of like things that people make that are really cool through like quote unquote vibe coding. And I'm actually like really excited because like of these types of examples brings in new tools for people who are not, like would normally not be able to like begin. And I think like, like I have that personal experience myself, and I'm like, wow, like now that I know this, then I can do that, then I can do this. And I hope that like with the rise of vibe coding, it really helps you or like makes you want to learn more and gain like more and more tools for you to be able to do even more amazing creations. So I'm pretty optimistic about the rise of vibe coding actually, and I think it will continue. Yeah.
Yes. And I think if I were to make one note is that I think the only thing that I also tell my students as well is to not only learn from AI, like you said, is that, in this moment of time, I think it's even more valuable to not only because how vibe coding kind of flattened the experience and some of the knowledge. So it's more important for us to learn from each other, from the people around us as well. So kind of tying that back to our theme of new neighbor, I want to ask a final wrap-up question to everyone. Hearing from each other today, what is one short one-liner that you feel like you've learned from each other during our time today together? I'll go to Spencer, and then we'll circle back all the way back to Pat. Okay, Spencer, you go.
Oh, okay, I was thinking. I mean, I think it was really cool to see like I don't have a one-liner, sorry. I think it was really cool to just see like the in-depth like different approaches to like the same medium, and I think there's a lot of like connections across all of our practices around like just all these themes of like collectivity and like bringing in diverse perspectives, and it's cool to see how it like how like a simple idea can like blossom in many different ways. Yeah.
Yes, that's okay. That's beautiful. Doesn't have to be very concise. Nicci?
Yeah, I think because our perspectives are so varied, and also like I think a commonality is like how we're all making art through all of these different tools at our disposal. And really like to me, I think that the central thing expressed in like everyone is really like art is just an expression of your like perspective about some observation that you made right on the world. And I think that was really cool.
Kesha?
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay, because I couldn't hear. I mean, I couldn't see you all. Last. Wait, let me boil my thought. So I was thinking a lot about the vibe coding question before and what Pat was saying, and I guess at this point we're being trained now to think more holistically as well. So I think it's not just about knowing about coding, but to be able to know other subjects, like other disciplines. It will be good to enrich your vibe coding activities, because I think vibe coding itself is not just about the coding, right? Most people who use it probably comes from other background that has nothing to do with coding, and maybe they want to sort of supplement what they have been doing. So it's good to have interdisciplinary knowledge, I think, and it's nice. It's like it's giving accessibility to more people, to more knowledge. So more optimistic note, I guess.
Mm-hmm. What about Nyan and then Pat?
I'm still on the question about community. Like I think my one line is that like everyone thinks the world is big, but I think the world is actually smaller than you thought. So the people that you might know will sooner or later become your neighbors. So how are we related to each other? How can we treat each other? How do we love each other? I think it's very important in this generation of technology. And I really hope that I got to see more of the application from technology that really highlight the aspect of love that we have in our humankind. Yeah. And we are all in this together. Thank you for sharing.
Yes. And Pat, please give us one final line.
It will be multiple lines, but just to wrap it up with like what everyone's saying, I agree completely. And I just want to bring it back to like two words, right? Like community and like code, like creative technology. And I feel like to me, code is just a mean to an end. And the end is community. And also like the input is also community. And so I would encourage everyone, what I gained from this perspective, different perspectives from everyone on the panel too, is that like you can like see the world through the lens of so many people, and so like choose wisely, you know, like broaden it up. There's just like so much more in the world, and I hope like those input with the mean, which is the code, can produce a lot of like great things to be shared again to the world. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. I want to give a massive thank you again to all of our speakers, Nicci, Pat, Kesha, Nyan, and Spencer. Thank you all for being so incredibly generous with your time and insight today. This event, I think, truly for me and for the audience demonstrate, you know, how much we have to learn from the rich and diverse ideas of our neighbors across not just Asia, Southeast Asia, but you know, different parts of the world, rather than just focusing solely on one certain part of the world. So it has been an absolute pleasure to hold this space with all of you. And to those audience who are hanging out with us on the YouTube live stream, thank you all for being such wonderful new neighbors today and for celebrating this event with us. Have a beautiful rest of your day or a lovely, peaceful evening wherever you are. Thank you all so much. 谢谢大家. We'll see you all very soon. Bye bye.